I didn't even want to go. The email came in at 9:47 a.m. sharp. Subject line, dinner with the Donnies, Friday, 7 p.m. A proper invite from HR with a little happy face picture added, like that made it personal. After 22 years of building CoreLogic Dynamics from a tiny tech startup in a rented storage place to a $120 million data study company with worldwide clients, I was being called not to a board meeting, not to an investor talk, but to dinner with the CEO and his family. My name is Mia, and I was the first person ever hired at CoreLogic. I wasn't just part of the company. I was the company. When I started, we had 3 clients and 1 printer that broke if you looked at it wrong. I built our client systems, handled seller deals, took care of money matters until we could pay for a money manager, and got deals that kept the lights on. The founder, Doug Donnelly, used to call me the quiet engine. He said I kept things moving when everything else almost fell apart. But lately, I'd felt the change. Doug had become more distant. My updates were quickly scanned rather than carefully read. Our regular Monday meetings turned into twice-monthly calls that were sometimes put off forever. And then came the interns. Young, loud, buzzwords flying out of their mouths like party paper. I could feel the cold air coming before the window opened. So when I got the dinner invite, I knew. I just didn't know how cold that air was going to be. The eating place was one of those fancy downtown rooftops, with 2 costly seafood and showy lighting. I wore a soft navy top and the white gem earrings my daughter gave me last Mother's Day. I looked worthy, leader-like, the way I always had. Doug was already there, standing beside a long white cloth table with his wife, Patrice, and their daughter, Harper. She looked like she'd just walked off a fashion show. Blonde, polished, not a fold in sight. In her cloth pants outfit, she looked like the walking form of business boss style. "Mia!" Doug shouted, arms open. "So glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, smiling as I slid into my seat across from him. My stomach twisted like rope. Dinner started off like any other boss gathering. Too much wine, too many nice words that meant too little. Harper asked about the company's early days, her voice light but looking down on me. "It's so funny thinking about you guys working out of, like, a garage or something," she said with a little laugh. I smiled. It wasn't funny at the time. Doug cleared his throat. "Actually, Mia saved the company twice in the first 5 years. She brought in that army deal that got us our first million." Harper smirked. "Well, every company needs its building blocks." I should have walked out then, but I stayed because I wanted to see how far they'd go. Halfway through the main course, fish over yellow rice, Doug folded his hands on the table like a man making a peace gift. "Mia," he said slowly, "we've been doing some long-term planning. You've been more than key in getting CoreLogic where it is. Here it comes. But as we place the company for its next step, we feel it's time to bring in a new group. Fresh energy, new view." I kept my face calm. "Harper just finished her boss training program at Stanford," he added proudly, like I hadn't guided 5 top school kids already. "She's got some amazing ideas about making new the brand, moving us into blockchain, AI. Interesting," I said calmly. "What's the change plan?" He looked happy. 6 weeks. She'll follow you at first. We'll handle the proper notice after the 3-month call. Of course, there's a big money package. We want you to feel valued." That's when Harper leaned forward, fork in hand, eyes bright. "Time to step aside, Granny," she said with a little smirk. "Let us take it from here." The table went quiet. Even Patrice's fork stopped midair. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled. Completely understand. Because what they didn't know, what they never even thought to check, was that CoreLogic wasn't just a company I helped build. It was a company I owned, in a way they had forgotten. Doug had once given me 5% in ownership when we couldn't afford a raise. I never sold it, and I'd been watching quietly ever since. They thought I'd forgotten. Doug gave me 5% of the company in 2003, 2 years after we'd started CoreLogic. We were nearly broke. I had just stayed up all night fixing a billing mess that nearly lost us our biggest client. Doug walked into my office, red-eyed and worried, and handed me a single-page deal. "Mia," he'd said, "I can't pay you what you're worth right now, but if we make it through this, I want you to have a piece of it." At the time, I barely glanced at it. It felt like a thank you card more than a deal paper. I was tired, loyal, and stupidly hopeful. But years later, when we formed a company and brought in our first outside money person, I had a law person review everything I'd signed. That's when I found out it wasn't just a sign of thanks. It was real ownership. Voting rights. True ownership. Never brought it up, never showed off, never reminded Doug. I didn't need to. I was part of the cloth of the company, or so I believed. But over time, CoreLogic changed, and so did Doug. He stopped asking for input and started chasing trendy words. Helpers came and went, but the ones who smiled at Harper's work page stayed longer. Suddenly, worth wasn't counted in loyalty or results. It was counted in looks, and I didn't fit the part anymore. The next Monday, I walked into work like nothing had happened. Smiled at the front desk, took my usual black coffee from the machine that still hissed like a steam train, logged into my email. My access was untouched for now. No official news, just quiet. Luis, our data worker, stopped by my office with that careful look he gets when something's off. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Just a little dinner with the Donnies." He winced. "I heard. Words starting to get around. People are confused." I met his eyes. "Let them wonder." I wasn't ready to show my hand. Not yet. Instead, I called up the owner's page and logged in. My 5% was still there, untouched. And with the new money people bringing fresh cash, that small piece of ownership had grown into something big. I got copies of everything: stock deals, board voting passed, boss pay plans. Then I asked for a meeting with Doug's helper. "I'd like 30 minutes with Doug, private." She blinked, surprised, but nodded. "I'll see what I can do." When I stepped into Doug's office on Wednesday, he looked up with a tired smile. "Mia," he said, pointing to the seat across from him. "How are things?" "Curious," I said, sitting down. "You didn't mention the ownership I still hold." His smile froze, just slightly. "I thought you'd sold it by now." I didn't. I placed the printed owner deal on his desk. And unless I missed something, I still have voting rights. Doug put his hands together. "Mia, this doesn't need to get hard. We're offering you a good way out." "I'm not leaving yet," I said calmly. "I'll help the change. I'll do it with good manner. But if Harper plans to redo the company, if she plans to bring in her own team or sell off parts, I want my say." He frowned. "You're holding on to something out of old feelings." "No," I said. "I'm holding on to what I built." I left before he could answer. Let him think about it. That evening, I pulled out a dusty file box in my home office. Inside was everything. From the early days. Drawings of the first design, notes from client talks, the very first screen sketches drawn on paper napkins. And then I found something I hadn't seen in years. A secret deal signed by Doug in 2005, saying that many special tools I'd built for the company had come from my past help work. The kind of small thing most people forget about, but I don't forget. The next day, I met with Melissa, an old friend, and now a top law person for made-up stuff. We had coffee at a quiet food place 2 blocks from CoreLogic main office. I laid it all out. "Can I keep this safe?" I asked. She smiled as she looked through the pages. "Mia, you own this, at least part of it. And with your share, you've got weight they didn't expect." I breathed out, the weight of 2 tens of years sitting heavy in my chest. "They think I'm a stepping stone." "Then let's show them," she said, "that stones can break bases." By the end of the week, the whispers had started. Why is Mia still here? Why is she so calm? Why hasn't Harper taken over yet? I smiled as I passed them in the hall. They'd asked me to dinner to write my ending, but they didn't know I was writing the next part. By Monday, Harper had moved into my office. Not officially, of course, but she was hanging around, showing up early, walking in with coffee and a forced smile like we were best friends. Her voice was sugar-coated, her questions loaded. She asked about seller ties and backroom systems, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't here to learn. She was here to replace. "Do you always approve money asks by hand?" she asked, looking. Through a paper, she barely understood. "Always," I replied. "It catches mistakes. Computer help doesn't." But if we use guess tools? Guess tools are only as good as the facts behind them. We still have old clients using 10-year-old systems. Bad in, bad out, she blinked, clearly not knowing the idea. Then smiled again. You're a bit old school, huh? There it was. I just smiled back. Old school kept this company from falling during 3 different downtimes. But feel free to learn the hard way. She didn't like that. By Wednesday, she had set up her first planned meeting without me. Sent asks to the leader team, leaving out only one name, mine. Luis sent me the ask anyway. Thought you'd want to see this. The subject line. Vision 2.0. Core Logic's future begins now. Cute. I opened the plan list and right away saw what she was up to. New brand work, hiring stops and running, maybe sending out backroom help. I laughed out loud. Sending out backroom help? Half our client worth was backroom help. Clients didn't come to us for pretty screens. They came because we knew how to keep their systems running when everyone else left. She didn't know the company. She knew of the company, the form her father talked about over a Sunday morning meal. That same afternoon, Doug stopped by my desk, something he hadn't done in years. Mia, he said, using that smooth talker voice. I want to make sure the change is easy. Harper's getting a lot of eyes already. Being seen isn't knowing, I said flatly. He stopped. You've always been the heart of this place. You asked me to dinner to get the heart out of it. Doug pulled back just slightly. That's not what this is. Then what is it, Doug? Because I built the systems, I kept the money people calm. I held your company together while you were taking breaks in Napa. Quiet. I know about the third money spread, I added. You're getting the company ready to sell. His eyes got big. How? I've been here long enough to know how the winds change. He didn't say no, just looked at the floor. We had to make hard choices. The board wanted a new face, a new story. Story you thought didn't include me. He waited. We're offering you a deal. I'm not interested in your deal, I said. I'm interested in what I'm owed. I walked away before he could answer. Back in my office, I emailed Melissa. I wanted the 4Now rights filed by the end of the week. Not just the old design, but the better versions I'd made over the years. I wasn't hurting the company, but I was drawing a line. Anything that had my marks was going to be legally kept safe. Thursday morning, I found Harper at the big whiteboard mapping out her new client keeping plan. It was taken almost word for word from a plan paper I'd written 6 years ago. She must have dug through the old files. When she saw me watching, she smiled. I'm just making new, she said. Your work was a great base. No problem, I said, stepping closer. Just make sure you name your sources. Copying doesn't look great on 3-month reports. Her smile flickered. By Friday, the computer team was whispering. Vanessa, my doing lead, caught me in the break room. They're nervous, she said quietly. Harper's pushing changes that don't make sense, and Doug's not saying a word. Because he's not in charge anymore, I said. He just doesn't know it yet. Vanessa looked at me. What are you doing, Mia? Setting the table, I replied. For what? For the storm, I said. But it's okay, I plan to smile through it. That night, I sat on my porch with a glass of red wine and my laptop open. The emails were already written, 1 to the leftover 3. Board members, reminding them of my ownership and the first owner rule that needed everyone to agree for big changes. 1 to Technova Systems, a company we'd nearly bought last year, now growing fast. I was on good terms with their boss. I wanted a meeting, and one last email to myself, subject line, wait. I was keeping everything, just in case. I didn't want war, I wanted credit, but if they kept pushing me, they'd find out just how old school I could be. The official news came on a Tuesday morning, all staff meeting, must come. Harper at the front of the big room with a wire-free mic, walking like a big speaker while a picture show played behind her, filled with stock photos and empty sayings, view, speed, win. Doug brought her in with a warm smile, calling her a breath of fresh air. Harper beamed and thanked him like she'd just won a beauty contest. Then she turned to the staff and said it. It's time for a new part, she began. A younger, thinner, and more new-thinking CoreLogic. And there it was, not even hidden. I sat in the second row, arms folded, watching the faces around me. Most people tried to hide their worry. Vanessa looked shocked. Luis wouldn't even meet my eyes. Then Harper pointed toward the big screen, and a slide came up with the words, Group Thinning Plan, Step 1. That's when my jaw got tight because that slide showed a redoing plan. Cuts to backroom work, outside computer jobs, joining groups, and worst of all, old leader change, meaning me. They didn't even say my name. After the meeting, Harper came up to me in the hallway, alone, sure of herself. I hope you'll be nice about this, she said, voice low. It's what people expect of old-timers. I turned my head. You mean women who've outlived 3 bosses and built the systems keeping this place standing? She didn't answer, just smiled like I was being hard. That afternoon, HR sent an official leaving package, a check with a lot of zeros, a don't tell, paper, and a part that said I was to help in a full know-how move, and that's when they pushed too far. I walked into Doug's office, package in hand. He was already bracing for it. Mia, he started, you let your daughter stand up there and pretend? This was her idea, I said. You let her call me old and useless in front of everyone, and now you want me to hand over my work like a loyal old dog. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I said. And let me be clear, I'm not signing anything. Not today. Not ever, he breathed out. Then you're forcing us to end your job. You're forgetting something, I said, reaching into my bag. I still have my owner's seat. You try to force me out without board, okay? You'll be breaking the first deal. Doug went white. You think Harper's ideas are bright and new, but they're harmful. Cutting the back end will hurt your base. And that guest help plan she keeps talking about? It doesn't even follow our client deals. You know that? He leaned back, quiet. I'm not trying to sink the ship, I added, but I won't let you sink me with it. That night, I met Vanessa and Luis at a quiet diner across town. I slid them both yellow envelopes. What is this? Vanessa asked. Proof, I said, that what we built isn't just lines of code. It's brainwork, written down, time-marked, trackable. You're going to take them to court? Luis asked. Not unless they make me, I said. But I want you both to be safe. Harper's already planning a second round of cuts. Vanessa nodded slowly. She's got the news team working on the press release. They're cleaning house before the buyout. I said CoreLogic is being packaged, thinned, turned into a shiny thing. Luis looked up. Are you going to stop it? No, I said. I'm going to shape it. Over the next 3 days, I worked like a ghost. Quiet, not noticed, but exact. I met with Melissa again, filed a stop-doing letter about the reuse of special parts in Harper's new systems. I sent a letter to the board, proper notice that I planned to vote against the redoing unless a fair outside check was done. And I met with the boss of Technova over lunch, just to talk. But when I mentioned CoreLogic's changing leaders, his eyebrows went up. They're getting ready for a sale, I said. He nodded slowly. That would explain the smart people reaching out to us. I smiled. If you're interested, I can tell you which systems you'd want to keep safe and who really knows them. By Friday, the push had reached Harper. Her voice had a new edge to it in meetings. Her smiles were tighter. The sureness was breaking because the people she thought she could lead were starting to look back at me. And all I did was smile. Because the storm she tried to start? I'd already built the walls. By Monday, 3 of Harper's flashy new starts had failed. The seller move she promised would cut costs, delayed due to joining problems, also known as Luis quietly pulling the plug on a fit-together patch he'd personally written 2 years ago. The rebranding plan? On hold after the law team flagged it for taking from a smaller tech firm's name, Mark, a firm I knew personally. I might have tipped them off. And the new guest study plan? It crashed the second it was tested on live client. Data, bad in, bad out, just like I'd warned. But Harper didn't stop. She doubled down. She called a meeting that afternoon, must come for all group heads. Her voice was short, fake smiling through her anger. We are going through growing pains, she said, but I want to make sure we are on the right path. Change is never easy. From the corner of the room, I raised an eyebrow. Change works when there's a fall stop. You've cut every safety net this company had. She smiled tightly. Thank you for your thoughts, Mia. Doug sat in quiet. He wasn't even trying to hide anymore, just a front man slumped in a chair, letting his daughter steer the ship toward a big ice rock. After the meeting, Vanessa caught up with me. 3 of our longtime clients called today, she said, voice low. They're nervous. One saying they'll leave if their help quality drops again. I nodded. Let me guess. Harper hasn't answered their emails. She thinks they'll wait. They won't. I went home that night, opened my laptop, and wrote a 2-line email to Daniel Renner. Subject, talk after from our lunch. If your board is serious, now is the time to move. Daniel Renner was the boss of Teknova, and his board had been going around CoreLogic for months, waiting for the perfect time to make a move. I wasn't going to hurt anything, but I was going to hand them a mirror, let them see what was happening behind the curtain. The next morning, I found Harper in my old office, feet up on the desk, throwing a stress ball between her hands. She didn't even look up when I knocked. Can I help you? She asked like I was the new kid. I need a few minutes. She sighed. Make it quick. I stepped inside, calm as ever. You're losing the company. That got her notice. I know you think people will follow you because you talk about new things and name-making, but this place wasn't built on saying things. It was built on trust, ties, systems that really work. She stood up, eyes small. Are you warning me? No. I said, I'm giving you a chance. To what? To stop acting like you know what you're doing? She laughed. My father is being pushed to the side by his own board. I said, you're a front person, just like he is now. She stared at me, the show-off breaking just a little. You want to lead? I added. Fine, lead, but don't burn the base down just to prove you can light a match. She didn't answer. I didn't think she would. Later that day, Doug asked for a private meeting. No helper, no Harper. He looked tired, really tired. Mia, he said, sitting down across from me. What do you want? I took a breath. I want credit. Not a money out, not a name. Credit. He rubbed his face. The board is scared. They've seen the shaking. They know your name is still tied to every key system. They should be scared, I said. They handed a multi-million-dollar job to someone who thinks old know-how is a bad thing. And Teknova? He asked quietly. I just smiled. I had lunch with Daniel. The offer is real, but I haven't decided yet. Doug looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. You could walk away from all of this. I could, I said, but I won't, because what I built matters. And if they want to keep using it, they're going to do it on my terms. That evening, I got a text from Vanessa. Client X just sent an official worry letter to the board. Things are shifting. I answered with 2 words. Stay strong. Harper had the speaking tool, but I had the stage. And in just a few more moves, I'd be the one rewriting the words. The boardroom was full. Not just body-wise, but feeling-wise. The kind of full where stress hangs in the air like static, and everyone acts like they're calm when they can barely breathe. It was Thursday must-come meeting, the board had called it. The boss, the 4 now leader team, group heads, and me. Doug sat at the end of the table, looking 10 years older than he had 2 weeks ago. Harper sat beside him, quickly turning through a leather notebook she hadn't written a single useful word. In and across from me, the man I'd spoken with over lunch just days ago. Daniel Renner, boss of Teknova, now wearing the nice, not-involved look of someone checking a company's parts before deciding whether to take or walk away. Before we begin, said Celeste, the board head, we need to talk about the big thing in the room. She nodded toward me. Mia has brought to our notice several items, deal, tech, and doing, that were not shared during our inside looks at Core. Logic's change step. A few heads turned. Doug's face was hard. Harper glanced at me like she finally understood she'd stepped into something much bigger than her. Celeste went on. As per our first owner deal, any try to redo the boss job needs everyone on the board to agree if it touches owners with more than a 3% share. She turned toward me. Mia, would you like to speak? I stood, not rushed, not feeling full, just steady. I'm not here to cause trouble, I began. I've never wanted that. I'm here because for over 2 years, I gave everything I had to this company, and somewhere along the way, people started treating that as a weak spot, as throwaway. Harper's jaw got tight. I didn't look at her. I don't want a crown. I don't need a name. But I do want my work respected. I want what I did known. And I want whoever leads this company to understand that new things mean nothing without a base to stand on. There was quiet. Then Daniel cleared his throat. We've been watching this closely, he said, pointing around the room. And we've seen the aftermess. 3 big clients have said they're worried. 2 have stopped deal changes, and based on inside reports, the systems that make CoreLogic worth money are not as self-working as said before. His look moved toward Harper. She froze. He looked back at the board. Our offer still stands, but it depends on leader steadiness. And honestly, we won't go on if the current change plan stays in place. Change of words. Harper had to go. Doug opened his mouth, but Celeste held up a hand. Let's take a 10-minute break. People stood up, whispering among themselves as they went into the hallway. I stayed sitting. So did Harper. She looked at me, really looked at me. I didn't mean to break anything, she said, her voice small now. I met her eyes. You wanted to prove yourself. I get it. But you came in hitting without ever asking what we were hitting at. You treated people like blocks, and you treated me like a small note. She swallowed. What happens now? I leaned in slightly. That's not up to me anymore. That's the board's call. 10 minutes later, we came back. Celeste stood and gave the final word like a calm judge. Starting now, Harper Donnelly is taken off all change leader jobs. Doug will stay in a help role through the buy time. Mia Carter, she turned to me, will lead a changing help team reporting straight to the board and our maybe partners at Technova. I didn't smile. I just nodded. Later that week, I signed my helping deal. 3 times my old pay, full self-rule, and power over systems joining during the buy. Harper left quietly. No goodbye email, no leaving party. Doug shook my hand one last time in the front room. I'm sorry, he said softly. I know, I replied. 2 months later, CoreLogic officially became part of Technova. Most of the workers stayed. I handpicked a new leader team. Vanessa became head of doing. Louise took over tech building. Half the company now told people I'd personally trained, and I didn't move back into my old office. I worked from a small home setup looking over the lake. Twice a week, I walked barefoot on the deck with my coffee, watching the sun come up while client screens loaded smoothly in. The background. Systems I designed still running quietly beneath the surface. One evening, I got an email from Celeste. Subject, Old Worth Mia. What you did, the way you handled it, we've never seen anything like it. You didn't just keep your old worth. You reminded everyone what real leading looks like. I sat there a long time, looking at the screen. It wasn't about getting back. It wasn't about power, it was about worth. Knowing it, owning it, and refusing to let anyone take it from you.